Hello, I'm EnterElysium and welcome back to From the Depths tutorial. This is 102. We're going to be looking at custom cannons and weapons of all descriptions, but particularly the custom cannon today. So if we open, the building interface thingy with E, you can see that we've got this one called Simple Weapons. It has things like ram, small cannon, large cannon, auto cannon, heat-seeking missile, torpedo launcher, harpoon gun, drill laser. Other than the drill and the ram, these are all kind of naff. And by kind of naff, I mean they're very small, they're very simple, they do very low amounts of damage and very inaccurate. And outside of like some very niche circumstances, I wouldn't use any of them because it's a lot more fun and a lot more customizable and a lot more effective and efficient to use a custom cannon or like a custom missile torpedo system. We're going to use a custom cannon today. We're going to talk about custom cannons. So custom cannons have a number of different pieces. The first part to start with is the firing piece. The firing piece is like where you load the shell, it's the breech. And that is basically where you'll build the rest of your cannon off. So it's always a good place to start is with the firing piece. You can start with other pieces and build to the firing piece, but for today, I'm just going to briefly go from the firing piece, and we're going to talk about this. So you see that it says, by the way, in the description, I always recommend you read the description, barrels go in front. You probably guessed that one. And ammo boxes and all other components on the top or side. That means on the bottom, you cannot connect extra pieces to attach to the cannon. On the back, you cannot connect extra pieces to go to the cannon. You have to attach them from the top or the side. So we're going to connect the cannon to the raft via the bottom, since you can't use that to connect to other pieces of the cannon. And you can see that it's got a number of stats here. So it's got a reload time of 4 seconds, kinetic damage of 150, does no explosive damage, has an AP, which is arm penetration, of 3, has 0 ammo and 0 boxes, has an azimuth and elevation of 45. That means it can see to the side 45 to shoot and up and down 45 to shoot. Because we haven't put this on a spin block of any kind or a turret block, it's just going to be attached to our raft, and it will have to use that 45 to be able to shoot anyone in front of it. If they're not in front of it, we have to turn the entire raft. It's got a recoil of 1,000. That means the backward force every time it fires on us will be 1,000. That can increase the more you make the cannon insane. And can result in some interesting things. If you've got a very light wooden craft and you're firing a very large cannon, you will end up flying backwards. Ammo use 10 every time it fires, inaccuracy of 10. That means it is highly inaccurate. Like, crazy inaccurate. So, you can improve this. We're going to start with barrels. So we know barrels attached on the front. You've got many different kinds of barrel. Barrels. A barrel is your basic barrel. It decreases your inaccuracy. It basically makes you more accurate. There's nothing really more to say about it. It is probably the best part for decreasing your inaccuracy. Barrels are what you will try to maximize the number of in your barrel. Recoil suppression barrel. Like a barrel, these act as a barrel and decrease your inaccuracy and make you more accurate. They do not make you as accurate as a barrel would. Basically, there is a downside to using a recoil suppression barrel. The great part about it is it does decrease the amount of recoil your cannon takes. Basically, the barrel sort of absorbs some of the backward force, and it will mean that you don't take as much recoil on your vessel. So if you've got a vessel that's particularly light, like I said, like a wooden raft or something that might end up going backwards with a large caliber cannon firing, you can use recoil suppression barrels instead. But won't be as accurate as if you use a barrel in that circumstance. Flash suppression barrel. I don't really see the point in these. They reduce muzzle flash and the visibility of the shot, giving the element surprise. I don't really see the point in them outside of maybe multiplayer because the AI doesn't seem to use visibility to know if you're there. The AI tends to know. So I don't really see the point in these. They look kind of spiky, but for the moment I don't think they do anything particularly. Motor-driven barrel. Okay, this and the elevation barrel are very closely rated. The motor-driven barrel basically increases your arc up and down to a maximum of 45 that you can shoot. So as we saw before, this current firing piece has a azimuth and an elevation of 45. If we were to add loads of barrels, let's make a nice long cannon here. You can see that our azimuth and elevation are now 5. The longer you make the barrel, the motor in the actual firing piece itself cannot handle the ridiculous length of this barrel and is now saying, okay, I can only move it 5 degrees to the left or right. Obviously, with something that's actually attached to a structure like this, that's not particularly useful. And in fact, in most circumstances, that's not particularly good at all. So right now, this can only see 5 degrees to the left, right, up and down. If we were to use motor-driven barrels, however, you can make this a lot longer. So this is not an optimal use of them. I'm just going to use it to demonstrate. By using motor-driven barrels, you can see it's got 45-45. Motor-driven barrels get you back up to your maximum of 45-45. However, you don't need them all to be like this. You don't need them all to be motor-driven barrels. And in fact, if we look at the inaccuracy, it's 3.14. If we were to, say, replace every second one with a normal barrel, I'm using shift replace here, you can see that we have an azimuth and elevation of 45-45, but our inaccuracy is 1.74. You only need motor-driven barrels every space of 2. So every section of 2, you only need one motor-driven barrel. And you see that we still have our 45-45 elevation with an accuracy of 1.39. If I was to add an extra barrel, you can see that suddenly... Oh, it's still 45-45. How much more do I need to go? 22-22. There we go. And accuracy is, pretty far down, but we're starting to lose our azimuth and our elevation. So I'm just going to remove some of these barrels for now. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, so while those make sure you can have a 45 to the left and right and 45 up and down, elevation barrel is slightly different. Elevation barrel basically means that it can shoot up really far. These are great for AA guns, or also guns that you want to be particularly pointed at the enemy because they're on a turret. But you also want them to be able to shoot really high up to be able to get a nice arc. Elevation barrels do something completely different. If I was to put an elevation barrel here, and then I was to just chop off the rest of this, you can see that we now have an elevation of 45 and azimuth of 11. If I just delete that, it should say, there we go, azimuth of 22, elevation of 80. An elevation barrel used correctly will give you an azimuth of 22 and an elevation of 80. However, you only need to use one of them in any one design, because if we were to do this, do the same thing we did before with the motor-driven barrels, you can see that we still have our azimuth of 22 and our elevation of 80. The motor-driven barrels basically keep this, the same as when they took over. So we've got an azimuth of 22, elevation of 80. And if we do what we did before with the barrels, every second motor-driven barrel, add a normal barrel. Oop, wrong one. There we go. And just take that last one off. You can see that we have a 2280 with an accuracy of 2.42. If we add more barrels, you would see that we actually start to drop. Admittedly, we need a motor-driven barrel actually there. And so we've got an azimuth of 22 and elevation of 80. We can see up, down 80. We can see left and right 22. This is great for things on a spin block because the spin block will handle your turning on the azimuth for you, but you need the elevation. Awesome. And an accuracy is only 1.74, which is reasonable. It's not long range, but it's reasonable. Okay, so that's pretty much barrels for you. A little bit to take in there, but we're going to go through this relatively fast. You can always flick back through the video if you need to. Now, Predictor. We're just going to mention this. This remarkable piece of technology displays the approximate fall of the shot. Basically, this will draw a line on your screen. You can attach it up or to the side. We're going to attach it to the top. And this will draw a line on your screen showing you where the cannon will go. So if I go out of build mode, and if I get close enough to the cannon, you will see down the bottom in my left-hand corner, it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all. If we get close enough, it's now controlling the cannon. You can see that when I look around, I am controlling the cannon. I cannot actually take it outside of its arc. You can see that it aims pretty far up because it's got that 80-degree elevation, but if I go past it, it resets. Unfortunately, there's no ammo supply, so I can't fire it, but you can see that the prediction line is actually giving us a predicted arc of the shot, taking gravity into account and so on. This is why you pretty much, if you're going to have a cannon, you really want a predictor on it to be able to give you an idea of where the shells are going to go. I do recommend it. They are pretty useful like that. But we're going to back away because I don't want to be controlling that. In fact, I can actually just get closer and go to 5, 4, 3, or 1, which are all not where the cannon is marked. The cannon is only in all at the moment. Or I can just walk away and get outside of its range. So if we go back to building on the cannon, I'm going to get a 6-way connector. So 6-way connectors. Read the description. This block has inputs on all sides. You know, an up-down, you can get a front-back connector as well. They do have their uses. For the moment, we're just going to talk about the 6-way connector. Basically, you can attach things to the cannon off of a 6-way connector. This is going to be basically your backbone of any sort of particularly large cannon. Then you can attach things to this. So let's start with a gauge increase. Gauge increases basically mean you can fire a higher caliber shell. If we were to put a gauge increase on here, watch what happens to the cannon. The inaccuracy is 1.74 and the kinetic damage is 205 currently. Kinetic damage is now 302, and the inaccuracy is now 1.67. So the inaccuracy has decreased. That's because you've got a higher caliber shell. It's heavier. It's got more mass. It's harder to deflect from its course. It's going to be more accurate. That's how it works. You notice that the kinetic damage has gone up, but you also notice the reload time is now almost 6 seconds. If we were to take that away, reload time's back to 4. So the reload time increases because you've got a much heavier, larger projectile that takes longer to reload. So you can do this and you can be like, I'm going to have a ridiculously massive projectile. And notice that the cannon barrel is actually getting fatter at the same time to take account of the barrel, take account of the bigger shell. You notice that now when we do a whole load of damage, 603, but our reload time is 11.76, which is not particularly great. If we delete you. By the way, all things with the cannon have a sort of exponential growth. So you notice that the first one increase does by quite a bit, and then as we add more, the increase in the kinetic damage will become less and less and less until it hits a flat ceiling. The only way to increase it past that flat ceiling would be something like increase the barrel length, which also increases your damage, or... No, that's pretty much it. You cannot go past a certain flat cap on some things, and you'll see that in a minute. So if we just leave it with, say, 1 gauge increase on for the moment. Now... these here, we don't really need to talk about the interface screen so much. It just displays certain properties about the cannon. We don't really need to talk about that particularly. What we need to have a look at is these things down here. Explosive warheads, arm-piercing warheads, ammo box, and the autoloaders. So ammo boxes basically have an internal ammo supply for the weapon. If we were to put an ammo box on here, we can now see that we've got 200 ammo in one box. So this weapon can now fire, because it will fire from this box of ammo. Interestingly, by the way, if we were to fire our entire supply from this box of ammo, and then the cannon's like, I'm out of ammo, I have to reload, the cannon would basically start drawing ammo from our actual ammo supply on the ship. So if we were to go to resources, ammo barrel there, it would start drawing ammo from this ammo barrel. However, it's much, much quicker to draw ammo from the actual gun itself. In fact, it is basically instant than it is to draw ammo from an ammo barrel over here. So this is kind of a slow way to get ammo. You really want to have as much ammo as you can in the cannon to be able to mean you have continuous fire rather than getting to the stage where you're starting very slowly drawing ammo from an outside source. So, what's this done? It's increased the amount of ammo in the gun. It hasn't done anything else. If you want to actually change something about the cannon, if we go to custom cannon, we add an autoloader. There's a manual and an automatic. I'm going to go for the manual. All it does is the orientation. I'm going to set the orientation manually. Click there. Connect to 0 ammo boxes, reducing reload time by 1. Basically, it isn't reducing reload time yet, but when I add an ammo box, look at that. Reload time is now 4.42. Reducing reload time by 0.75. And if we were to increase that by adding ammo boxes on each of the 3 connectors, reducing reload time by 0.42. And you see that reload time is now 2.49, so it's actually much faster firing. It's also got ammo in 600 boxes, in 600 rounds in 3 boxes. So basically, this cannon will now fire a lot more rapidly, and we can just increase this quite a lot. So if I was to go and add more connectors, and I was to add more ammo, and then more ammo like that, you can see that we have a reload time of 0.15. 0.15. That means we are going to fire about 7 shells every time we open up our gun at the enemy. That's pretty good. That is actually the cap for having 1 gauge increase. You know the reason I know this? It's because if I do that, see, reload time's the same. Reload time is the same. Reload time is, there we go. So this is actually the maximum number of ammo boxes that can decrease the firing time. Now, there is a point to having more ammo boxes, but they won't decrease the firing time. The point is, we will eventually run out of ammo fairly quickly firing this. Ammo use of 15 every time we fire, and we fire 7 times a second. We have ammo of 2600. We will eventually run out of ammo firing this gun. So, currently, the gun looks pretty good. What else can we do to improve it? Explosive warheads and arm-piercing warheads. Now, these do different things. If we add an explosive, you'll see that we do explosive damage of 15. If we add a arm-piercing, you can see that our arm-piercing goes up to 4 rather than 3. These do not need to be connected via these. They just need to be connected to the gun in some way. They can be connected via these. And you see that our arm-piercing is now 4.9. 5.7. You see it's an exponential fall-off. It's not going up by the same amount every time. But we now have an arm-piercing that's nice and high. The thing is, if we go and actually fire the gun... I'm going to try and get near the gun, and... fires nice and fast. If we were to follow projectile with caps lock, you see most of these trails are white. The reason is, if we go back with tab and enter build mode, the reason is that the amount of ammo, this is a very difficult mechanic to really describe because it's not actually displayed in-game. The ammo it's drawing, it can only draw so much from the arm-piercing warheads because there's only 3 of them attached and there's many, 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 many normal ones. The same goes for explosive. If we have a blue trail, that indicates arm-piercing. If we have a red trail, that indicates high explosive. If we have a sort of purple trail, that indicates it's both. So it's arm-piercing and high explosive. Currently, we're firing pretty much only normal projectiles. Very rarely we'll fire arm-piercing projectile. And that is because we do not have enough armor-piercing attached. So if we add more armor-piercing, in theory, don't let me down. There we go. You can see we have a couple of blue ones here, which means that we do have 3 blue arm-piercing projectiles, and the rest of them in the air were non-armor-piercing. They're just standard projectiles. So this is a problem with having a fast fire rate, that you're getting it through your ammo so fast, you don't have many of these going into it. Now, you can, of course, improve this. You can add more connectors, like that, and you can add arm-piercing to them until you get to the correct number of arm-piercing to actually have every shot be arm-piercing. Currently, we have an arm-piercing of 11.3, but if we were to fire the cannon, you can still see we're occasionally firing white projectiles. Are we? I think we are. Yeah, there we go. There's a white projectile there, but more of them have become armor-piercing. If we were to go over here and enter build mode and use a high explosive warhead and attach as many as possible, I still suspect we'll see a couple that aren't, but we should get most being... There we go. So we've got pink ones coming out, sort of pinky purple. That indicates explosive and arm-piercing. And you see there are some blue, which are just arm-piercing, because we've got more arm-piercing than we have explosive. And we've also got a couple white. There was one at the beginning, I think. And that indicates it has nothing. But we're getting there with making this cannon pretty awesome. So it's a rapid-firing, mostly arm-piercing and mostly high-explosive cannon now. And each of those rounds that actually are arm-piercing or high-explosive will do 125 high-explosive and an AP of 11.3, which is enough to get through metal. And this cannon will basically draw ammo from its ammo supply on board, which is enough to fire for about a minute, I think, off the top of my head. I would have to actually do maths on that. And then it will draw from this arrow barrel back here. And that is the principle of how cannons work and how you can build cannons. However, you can also build cannons on spin blocks, and I'm going to briefly go into that as well. I know this tutorial going on quite long, and I'm trying to go through it as fast as possible. Really to make sure you don't have to, deal with going through an extra long tutorial. I hate it when people take a long time to get to the point. But I'm going to quickly show you spin blocks as well and how they make turrets. Okay, so I've extended our raft over to the side, and if we go E, and then we go New Object. So all turrets are treated as objects attached to your object. So our object at the moment is our vessel. Our vessel includes the cannon. However, if we were to attach a turret, turrets are treated as a new object. So let's go New Object, and you want a 360 turret. Not a spin block, not a turn block, a 360 turret. You've got some choices here. You've got a 180 turret, which basically only has a 180 degree field of view in front of it. You've got a 360 turret, which has a 360 field of view all around, and it will also move up and down. So importantly, 360 turrets can look up, they can look down, and they can look side to side. You've also got 3 other types. You've got a 360 ASI only, which means it can only look around, it can't look up or down. That's what we have the elevation barrel for. We've also got a precision turret. Now, these are very much like the ASI. They can only turn around, they can't look up or down. However, they are very precise. They will not rub against things. Generally, I wouldn't use an ASI only, I'd use a precision turret, because precision turrets allow you to make basically turrets that have a mantle around them of like metal that are also flush with the deck, so there's no gap to shoot under. You can't do that with an ASI-only turret. An ASI-only turret will actually rub against the deck and basically stop moving. There's also a torqueless turret, which is useful if you want to attach it to something and you don't want that thing to take a counter rotation. Newton's law, of course, for each action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If we spin a turret, the object it's attached to will spin. Only ever so slightly normally, because it's a turret attached to a large ship. But if you're talking about something else like in space, or if you're talking about something like a very small aircraft, the turret spinning will actually have an effect on that. So maybe in those circumstances you want to use this. But the vast majority of the time here, you'll be using a 360 or a precision. So 360 can look up and down and look around. I'm going to demonstrate the precision because I can show you how you can attach a mantle to it to basically get flush with the deck. And you click that, and then you can be like, I will have it here. And you can see that now we are attached to this, And we can't actually build attached to the deck anymore. That is because we're now attached to a new object. You can use the left and right square brackets. So if we were to hit left bracket, it would go back to the ship, and square bracket would change between turrets and objects attached to the ship. We don't want to go back to the ship, we want to look at this turret. So if we were to quickly add a very simple cannon, firing piece, and predictor, and elevation barrel, motor-driven barrel 1, 2, 3, 4. Normal barrel instead every 1. And then we were to put a 6-way connector. And then just put some ammo boxes attached to these. If we can get the thing right. There we go. Ammo box. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then if we want a gauge increase or 2, let's put 3 on, why not? And we've got a cannon that fires 3 times a second, and it will look up 80 degrees. It will also look to the side 22, but we've got a turret for that, so it will spin around. And it does a decent amount of kinetic damage. It doesn't have anything fancy attached like explosives or anything like that, but it should be a reasonable little turret for its size. Now, it will only turn around. It will not go up and down. The cannon piece does that. So if we go and actually visualize that, where the hell am I? I'm over here. Okay, I need to go over here. You can see that our cannon is turning around. Look at that. Beautiful. And it will look up using the firing piece, and it can also look to the side using the firing piece, but only a little bit. Now, if we were to attach something to the cannon, which you can only do with a precision turret block, if we were to add, say, a metal block around the bottom, because we're worried about it getting shot, and we would, want to make sure it's well defended. And then you can be like, I'm going to put, metal over here. I want to make sure it's, well kept and doesn't get blown up. You can do this, right? You can do this. And look, it still turns around flush with the deck. And we've actually managed to move our raft somewhat by firing the cannon, because it has recoil. Bam! And that's how it works. It's pretty simple to get cannons working. You just have to understand a few different things, and the fact that a lot of the things attached to them are exponential functions, so you will start to get exponentially diminishing returns when it comes to actually attaching stuff. But there is one thing I want to touch on, and that is very, very quickly, I would like to talk about how the AI attaches to it. I'm not going to talk about how AI works yet. I think I'll do a separate video on AI, but there are 2 different ways to attach AI to a cannon. For a start, you have the firing piece here. AI weapon controller. The local weapon controller is what takes control of a actual cannon. It's what plugs into your weapon and takes it and plugs it into an AI. It is the interface. The local weapon controller is the block that does that. It can see 2 along, 2 up, there we go, and 2 down. It can't see diagonally. So we've got a firing piece here. We could connect the local weapon controller somewhere like here, or somewhere like here, or somewhere like here, all of which would be able to get... No, sorry, not there, because it would have to be there. All of which can get to the cannon. Or we could connect it below, but there's actually a beam there. I'd have to replace the beam. So if we were to connect it here, it should be able to take control of the cannon. If we quickly grab a piece of wood, and then put a AI local weapon controller, spin it so it can actually do that. Controlling 1 weapon, there we go. So you can see that it's taking control of this, and it now can talk to 1 weapon. This will now control the firing piece and aim the firing piece at enemies. However, it's still fixed to the ship. It can't turn. That's the nature of this gun. For the turret, however, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can attach it to the firing piece like we did there. That is problematic, because then you have to use a wireless receiver to send the signal. I'm not going to get into that in detail. Or you can attach it to the spin block. Now, the way we've got the spin block set up means if I attach this here, it'll be attached to the deck, and it'll prevent the turret from moving because it'll be jammed in the turret section. You can also make sure, because it's 2 up, we can go underneath, place it here, controlling 1 weapon. It is actually controlling the spin block and controlling the entire weapon via that spin block. this is one way of designing your cannon. You don't need to go directly to the actual firing piece. You can actually connect through to the turret section. I know you probably won't understand maybe the full details of how AI work, and you're probably scratching your head at the moment, but it's worth going over in this episode just so you are aware when you're designing your turret where to leave space for an actual AI weapon controller. I've been EnterElysium. That is it for custom cannon tutorial. I know it's gone on a bit long. I was trying to keep it as succinct as possible, but it's a little bit more complicated than engines, and especially when you're thinking about how to design your cannon, whether you want a ridiculously long-range barrel for extra accuracy and high damage, or maybe you want something that's a little bit inaccurate to be able to shoot down planes and have high elevation in your barrel. Maybe that's what you want. I had to go through it in a deal. But hopefully this has been interesting to you. I think next time we'll do missiles, and then we'll talk about AI and AI control. If there's anything else you'd like to me to talk about, do a video on that's got you particularly confused, let me know down below in the comments. And if you've liked, please remember to like, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. I've been EnterElysium. Until next time, stay shiny.